The champagne cork popped, a hollow gunshot in the dimly lit apartment. And I froze, my heart lurching as if the sound had cracked something inside me. I stood in the kitchen, gripping the bottle, its cold glass slick against my palms, while fairy lights strung across the exposed brick walls cast a warm, deceptive glow. This was supposed to be our moment, mine and Lila's, a surprise I'd spent months orchestrating. The new apartment, our future home, was perfect. Hardwood floors gleaming under the skylight, a view of the city's jagged skyline, and a lease signed in secret to sweep her off her feet before our wedding. But as the bubbles fizzed in the flutes, I caught it, a whisper, sharp and fleeting, from Lila to her bridesmaid, Sarah, in the shadowed corner of the living room. He can't know. Not yet. Her voice was a blade, slicing through the joy I'd been clutching like a lifeline. I forced a smile, my lips trembling as I handed Lila a glass. Her hazel eyes sparkled, but now I saw the flicker in them, a guarded edge I'd mistaken for excitement. To us, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. She clinked her glass against mine, her smile radiant, but her fingers brushed Sarah's arm as she turned, a gesture so subtle I might have missed it a week ago. Now it burned into my memory, a red flag I couldn't unsee. Sarah's gaze darted to me, then away, her lips pressing into a thin line. The room felt smaller, the air thick with something I couldn't name yet. The apartment was alive with details I'd poured my heart into. Fresh lilies on the counter, their perfume heavy in the air, a velvet couch I'd chosen because Lila loved deep green, a playlist of our songs humming softly through the speakers. I'd imagined her running into my arms, tears of joy streaking her cheeks, when I revealed the keys. Instead, she'd hesitated at the door, her laugh too bright, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. "This is incredible, Ethan," she'd said, but her eyes had lingered on Sarah, not me. I'd chalked it up to shock, to the weight of the surprise. But that whisper, it clawed at me, a splinter under my skin. We moved through the evening like actors in a play. Lila twirled through the apartment, exclaiming over the skylight, the walk-in closet, the tiny balcony where we could sip coffee at dawn. Her enthusiasm felt real, but I kept replaying her words. He can't know. Know what? My mind spun, conjuring possibilities I didn't want to face. Was she unhappy? Had I misread her all these months? I watched her pour another glass of champagne, her movements graceful but deliberate, like she was performing for an audience. Sarah hovered nearby, her phone buzzing incessantly, her fingers tapping out messages she angled away from me. The unease coiled tighter, a snake in my gut. "Ethan, you're a genius," Lila said, leaning against the kitchen island, her voice warm but her eyes distant. "How did you keep this a secret?" I forced a laugh, my throat dry. "Months of sneaking around. You're not the only one who can pull off a surprise." The words slipped out, sharper than I meant, and her smile faltered. Sarah coughed, setting her glass down too hard, the clink echoing like a warning shot. I wanted to ask, God, I wanted to scream, what they were hiding, but the words stuck, heavy and useless. Instead, I gestured to the balcony. "Want to see the view?" Lila nodded, too quickly, and followed me outside. The city sprawled below, a glittering maze of lights under a bruised purple sky. The autumn air was crisp, biting at my knuckles as I gripped the railing. She stood close, her shoulder brushing mine, but the warmth I'd once craved felt wrong, like a stranger's touch. "This is our future," I said, testing her, searching her face for the truth. "You and me, right?" Her breath hitched, so slight I almost missed it. "Of course," she whispered, but her eyes slid to the glass door, where Sarah stood silhouetted, watching us. My stomach twisted. I wanted to believe her, to drown in the fantasy I'd built. Lila in a white dress, our life unfolding in this apartment, laughter and love filling the empty spaces. But doubt was a poison, seeping into every memory. The late-night calls she'd taken in the bathroom, the work trips that left her distant, the way she'd started locking her phone. Small things, easily explained, until now. Back inside, Sarah was scrolling through her phone, her face pale under the fairy lights. "I should go," she said abruptly, avoiding my eyes. "Early day tomorrow." "Stay," Lila said too fast, her hand grazing Sarah's wrist. The gesture was fleeting, but it hit me like a punch. I remembered the way Lila used to touch me, absent-mindedly, possessively, her fingers tracing patterns on my skin. Now that intimacy felt stolen, redirected. My pulse pounded in my ears, drowning out the music. No, really, Sarah insisted, her voice tight. Congrats again, Ethan. This place is perfect. She grabbed her coat and was gone before I could respond, the door clicking shut like a guillotine. Lila turned to me, her smile brittle. She's just tired, she said, but the excuse felt flimsy, a threadbare lie. I wanted to grab her, to demand answers, but fear held me back. What if I was wrong? What if I was paranoid? Tearing apart our future over a whisper, a glance. I poured another drink, the champagne sour on my tongue, and sat on the couch, the green velvet cold against my skin. Talk to me, I said, my voice low, trembling with the weight of what I wasn't asking. What's going on, Lila? She sat beside me, too close, her perfume overwhelming. Nothing's going on, she said, her tone too bright, like she was trying to convince herself. I'm just overwhelmed. This is huge, Ethan. You did all this for us. Her hand rested on my knee, but it felt like a prop, a gesture from a script she no longer believed in. I stared at her, searching for the woman I'd proposed to 6 months ago. The one who'd cried and laughed and promised forever. But her eyes were guarded, her smile a mask. The apartment, once a symbol of our future, felt like a stage for a tragedy I hadn't seen coming. Lila, I said, my voice breaking. If there's something I need to know, tell me now. Her breath caught, and for a moment, I thought she'd crack, spill whatever secret she was guarding. But she leaned in, kissing me softly, her lips cold. I love you, she whispered, and the words felt like a deflection, a shield. I kissed her back, desperate to believe, but the doubt was a living thing now, clawing at my chest. Hours later, alone in the apartment after Lila claimed a headache and left, I found her phone on the counter. She'd forgotten it in her rush to follow Sarah. My hands shook as I picked it up, the screen lighting up with a notification, a message from Sarah. We need to tell him. I can't keep doing this. My heart stopped, the words blurring as my vision swam. I swiped, the phone unlocked. She'd never changed her passcode. The messages stretched back months. Late-night confessions, plans to meet. Words like love and sorry and we can't. Each one was a knife, carving away the life I'd planned. I sank to the floor, the hardwood cold against my knees, the fairy lights mocking me with their false warmth. Lila hadn't just betrayed me. She'd built a parallel life, one where I was the outsider. The apartment, this perfect stage, was a lie, a backdrop for a love I wasn't part of. I wanted to scream, to break something, but all I could do was sit there, clutching her phone, the truth burning through me like acid. When Lila returned the next morning, her eyes red-rimmed, she froze at the sight of me holding her phone. Ethan, she whispered, her voice raw. I can explain. But I didn't want explanations. I wanted the woman I'd loved, the future I'd built. Instead, I had this, a hollow apartment and a heart in pieces. Explain. I said, my voice a stranger's, cold and sharp. Explain how you love her? Her silence was the final blow, louder than any confession. The fairy lights flickered, the city hummed outside, and I stood in the wreckage of our future, wondering how I'd missed the cracks until they'd swallowed me whole.